And all right, now we are back. The reason I said we're back is because last week it was a Tanya-esque only show. She did a little traveling and got to do some fun stuff. And we're back now without Tanya, though. We still don't have Tanya here. And that's only because she's a ghost. She was a ghost the whole time. That was a spoiler alert.
The entire time. Just like
she was a
Sixth
ghost.
Sense.
Yeah. So this is episode 14 now of Eat, Drink, and Be Scary, a podcast where we talk about just kind of paranormal, haunted things and give our take on it. And it's funny and it's informative. I think people learn things. People tell me they learn things.
That's good.
Just like 2 episodes ago, you guys learned about Spearfinger.
Yeah, and then whale penis before that.
And we learned about whale penises.
Oh, God, I think a few people learned about whale penises. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I still have people Googling that. They're like, oh, my God, I just looked it up. Oh, my God, it's a whale penis. Don't Google it, but you're going to Google it. And on this episode, we also will drink stuff. And Ryan, you got something today. What are we drinking today?
Oh, I got Rufino's Moscato d'Asti, and I put raspberries in it.
And which is and absolutely has nothing to do with what we're going to talk about.
Absolutely none.
Oh, no,
generally, we try and
there was a lot of red.
Yeah,
in
maybe.
Civil War.
So we're going to talk about
This is what the battlefields look like.
Some floaters.
I had glasses in there. You went and got a coffee mug.
Fuck yeah, I am classy.
He asked for a glass. He asked for a glass, and he came out with a coffee mug.
I have never seen anyone drink
Wine out of a coffee
wine
mug.
out of a coffee mug.
I told you, I'm not much of a wine person, so there's no
really
pomp and
interesting.
circumstance in front of this.
We're going to be talking about the haunted battlefield of Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, which is pretty exciting because it's been referred to as the most haunted place in America by many people. Many people will say if you go there, you're going to see a ghost. And I have had people say, I kind of saw something I don't know. A really good friend of mine said he was just driving through an area and there was a road a little kind of dirt road that nobody was supposed to drive on. He knows nobody was supposed to drive on it because they were going to try and drive on it. And he just saw something there. He said it looked like an old trailer, like a flatbed trailer. And
So he saw a haunted flatbed trailer?
well, he just saw something with big wheels, is what he just, in the corner of his eye, peripheral, and he just goes, oh, this must be like some sort of weird trailer over there. And he looked back and it was gone. He said he didn't see anybody buy it, but he just saw it. So apparently, like, old wagons can be haunted.
Like a phantom wagon?
I don't know.
Well, I guess there's phantom ships.
Yeah. I don't know. When he told me the story, he says, I know it sounds stupid, but there was something there. Like, I know there was something there, and I look back. But anyway, yeah, Gettysburg, the most haunted place in the world.
I would say one of the most haunted.
I don't know. You would know. We'll talk deeper about that.
Reportedly.
But anybody who doesn't know, in July of 1863, there was a 3-day war there, and it was pretty crucial. The North won, which is
the
good.
Union.
But they say 50,000 people were either killed, wounded, or were missing.
5,000 horses. Just to throw that in there.
Oh, I didn't know that one.
Yeah, it's a lot of dead horses.
So yeah, they were. That in the missing, I can kind of understand the missing. We can go a little bit further into that, but yeah, it's supposed to be really, really super haunted. And there's a lot of areas there that are haunted as well. But I guess let's jump into this very first thing that we kind of were talking about beforehand. 50,000 people. Let's just say 50,000 people killed, wounded, or missing. I don't know how that breaks down. I got to think most. Oh, here we go. Okay, what do you?
Wait, hold on. Let me go back to it.
But that aside, I mean, clearly in a 3-day period of 50,000 people are tormented. And
That's horrific. That's a lot.
I wonder how many people, like the missing people, just ran.
Well, still, I mean,
I would have.
So it said an estimated total casualties is 51,112, 23,049 by the Union, and 28,063 by the Confederate.
Gosh, pretty even.
Yeah. 3,155 for the Union were killed. 3,903 were killed for the Confederates. The Union had 14,529 wounded versus the Confederate 18,735. And this is where you kind of were saying if they ran or they were missing. The Union had 5,365 missing and or captured soldiers, while the Confederate had 5,425 missing.
Yeah, on top of casualties.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there could have been some that probably died, and they were, they couldn't build coffins fast enough. So when they were trying to build coffin, they just said, "F it," and they just started throwing people in holes.
Well, that could be a part of it. Why this place is so haunted.
Yeah, and they were storing. There's one story about this barn. There's a house that was built where a barn used to be, and there was the story. And there says a story. Did you hear the story about? Apparently, I think Lee was coming to visit, and they're like, "Oh, let's hide all these dead bodies. I want him to see all these dead bodies." So they took a bunch of dead bodies and put them in a barn. At the beginning of the war, it was one of the first battles. And when the war ended, a couple days later, and of course the Union soldiers are burying all these guys, and they find out one guy was still alive. He was buried under all these dead bodies. They said that he went insane. So, of course, anybody that bought that house where that barn was, I guess they used part of the barn to make the house.
Makes sense.
Like if there was a retaining wall. For sometimes, you build a house, but if you leave one wall up, you can get some permits, forgiven. And they said that ghost just screams and haunts and makes really bad stuff. But, yeah, I'm sure a lot of people were buried kind of in just shallow little graves. Where the college is, they say you're not allowed to dig at all, because you're just going to find bones when you dig. But, of course, a lot of times if they amputated so many legs, I think they're like, "Doctor, I broke my finger." Well, cut his leg off. That just seemed like anytime there was Civil War something, somebody gets shot and they cut their leg off.
Amputation was like top of the line surgery at that point. I mean, the fact that they could cut your leg off to save your life was pretty big and pretty new, I think.
Why can't you just... Listen, I'm not a Civil War doctor, okay, but I'm like, if you get shot in the leg... Well, it's just like, okay, so beginning of Dancing with Wolves. He gets shot in the leg. They go, "Cut his leg off." And he goes, "I don't want to lose my leg." And they go, "Get him my doctor." Who are the other doctors that didn't know how? There was the first class is how to cut a leg off. And then that's it. Yeah. And then you run off. And go, "I know how to cut it. I'm now a doctor."
Right. Maybe the first class should have been how to save the leg, and the second class,
yes.
If that doesn't work, cut the leg off.
Yeah,
well,
exactly.
Think of it this way, too. They probably didn't have a lot of time.
Oh, so
it'd have been easier to cut it off than it would be to
wholesale leg
to
cutting.
put a Band-Aid on it.
Well, that's not. But then again, then you lose that soldier. That's gone. He's damaged goods. If you just
yeah, but if you're trying to save his life and 3 more die, I mean, that's another issue.
But if you get shot in the leg, is somebody going to come up and go, "You've got 6 minutes to live"? Beep.
Depends on where you're shot.
Leg.
Like the femoral artery, the kneecap, the toe?
Like I said, I'm not a Civil War leg doctorologist. Yeah.
I just cut it off at the knee.
I just stubbed it. Nope, got to lose it. All right. So anyway, they said there's bones thrown everywhere.
Do you know what the best stocking stuffer is? A severed foot.
That's true.
God.
It's form fitting.
Civil War joke.
Yeah. All right. So anyway, we go back that area. Dead people all over. It's supposed to be super haunted. Lots of tales. The biggest one so far is I've heard that more people have the stories is they'll just be standing on the field and they'll see a soldier, or they'll see a group of soldier.
Are they fighting or just standing there?
Just generally standing there. So they said like there was a group of businessmen. It's really funny they never give names. They'll always say like there was a group of businessmen, and they were standing there watching, and they thought that they were witnessing a reenactment, but then they disappeared. And they're like, "No, there were no reenactments this day." And then it goes, and then the credits roll. I don't know, but that's like.
And the general story. In the general story of, I saw something, but then I talked to somebody official who knows better, and they said it never meant to exist. Bum, bum, bum.
I don't know. Like, I think that there's a lot more going on to it. Like, didn't they just find a bunch of quartz in that area?
And that was the other thing. That it's a very high quartz area, and that's so we will talk about that. There was an author who wrote a book. He didn't even believe in ghosts, and then one day he goes to Civil War and takes a tour. Goes to Gettysburg and takes a tour, and he's like, "Now I'm a believer," because he got. Listen, I don't want to dispel anything here. He just kind of fell for a ghost box. I think he went and they said, "Oh, this has never happened before," and a little ghost box was talking back to them. But he did a bunch of research, and he did find out it's a high quartz area, and of course quartz. And you could talk about that, Ryan, because you know 10 times more about that than I do.
So quartz is a natural oscillator, and I know that under certain heat and pressure conditions, quartz crystal can actually take an image of whatever is in the area at the time. NASA's been using it a lot for their satellites and that type of equipment. So theoretically, if there were a lot of quartz in the area and certain pressure conditions were met during one of the battles, it would essentially record everything that's happening. And then under those very same weather conditions or pressure conditions, it will actually play them back like a movie. And if any of the weather changes, they would just disappear. That's another reason why they used to think a lot of the castles were haunted, because the castles were made out of a lot of shale, and shale has enough quartz in it to do the same thing. So that's one scientific theory for ghost phenomenon, is
karmic resonance.
Essentially, that's recorded by stone. Yeah.
Okay, so with that, let's talk about that for a second. You say it can be erased.
Well, it can be recorded over.
Okay, because that would be my thought. Because why, if there's a piece of quartz that has been lying around for 400 million years, I don't know. I'm not a rockologist. Right. I don't know.
Rockologist, I love that. That's a good
I want to rock. But if I don't know how long it would record. It's just the same thing. It's like I filled up an SD card with pictures. I understand. Eventually it gets full.
I don't know much about it, but I wonder if it's more like if the heat and pressure fit with the resonation of the quartz itself, it could record. Very similar to, hell, if you talk about the Lazarus Bowl, back when people used to make pottery with pottery wheels, right? They recorded things very similar to how like a record does, right? And if there was someone talking while this bowl was being made, essentially you could play it back with the right type of equipment.
Has anybody ever successfully done that?
I don't know. I'm sure that there have been. I mean, that's how they figured it out. But the Lazarus Bowl was supposedly when there were pot makers, bowl makers, whatever, just in the neighborhood and the little town when Jesus rose Lazarus from the dead. So they were saying that maybe there's a bowl out there that has Jesus' voice and the incantation to raise people from the dead. Hey, Catholics, right?
I mean, the odds of that just. So how many you have to listen to? It's like going through like billions of home movies, just billions of people's home movies on VHS, just hoping that you got like that one time that the neighbor down the street was talking about something.
That's something about all this quartz you guys are talking about. Like, there's just all these tiny pieces of quartz with nothing on them. Like, Dad accidentally hit the record video, and it's 30 minutes of nothing before your graduation. You're like, what are you doing here?
Mom, he recorded over Jesus' birth.
Oh, man.
With this Michael Bublé Christmas special. You ruined it, Mom. Why'd you do that? There's nothing worse than back in the day of the VHS when you had to look for something to record over. And you thought, how much did that memory mean to me? And then how many times did you have to record something? I don't know how many things got recorded when I was in elementary school that I thought I'd watch 1,000 times. Like a school play or something that you never, ever, ever watched. I don't even know they're out now.
Right.
All right, so anyway, back to that.
The right spot on.
Okay, so Gettysburg. So there's a couple areas that are kind of haunted. I'm going to talk about a couple of the ones that some of the more popular. And I don't know if you guys are familiar with these, but the very first one is in Stevens Hall. Are you guys familiar with Stevens Hall?
I've heard of it.
Okay, so Stevens Hall. There's a couple ghosts in there. It was a couple different things. I know they did store bodies, or there was a hospital or sometime. But during that time, the Blue Boy. Did you guys hear about the Blue Boy? So this is, again, it was like there was a you heard this story. The headmistress was really mean. She was really mean and hated everybody. There was a cruel headmistress, and the women that were living in there were hiding the little boy from her because she wanted to beat the little boy. These are always great stories. They don't have names. It's always headmistress, a boy, women. They don't have names of the people. Anyway, little boy and these girls were hiding him, and headmistress knocks on the door. They panic and they put the kid on the ledge. They go, hey, we'll be right back. And then the headmistress said, well, come down here, and brought her downstairs and yelled for a couple hours. They go up there a couple hours later. Little boy was missing. Little boy's name was Dennis Martin. No, I'm just kidding.
Dun, dun, dun.
From episode 12. Anyway, little boy was missing, never seen from again. Little boy gone. Okay? They ran downstairs trying to find the body. They couldn't find the body. There was no tracks. There was nothing. The little boy just disappeared. So, present day, now there's people that tell a story of this little boy who's completely blue. Well, when they're there, they see him.
Blue as in sad, or blue as in like he's...
Like the color.
I think he's cold. I'd be blue if I froze to death on a ledge. I'd be sad. So I think it could be both.
Could be both.
I think it means both, but he's, he was a little boy. And there's also a teenage girl, they say, that tries your clothes on.
The what?
Yeah. They say that women who have lived there, they've come home from something, and they see a ghost in front of a mirror, like holding up clothes, trying to look beautiful. And then they go, "Hey, what are you doing?" And then
she sniffs them and
then,
runs away.
And then she runs into a closet. She runs into a closet, and they go in the closet, and there's nobody there. So that's one of the
clothes
stories.
Disappear too?
I don't know. She could just be shoplifting. I don't know.
Interesting.
She can finally come out of the closet now. It's okay.
True. Return all those clothes.
I don't know why. You know what's really funny is my neighbor, who's going to listen to this, because she just told me the story yesterday. Her roommate has set up cameras in their house because they thought maintenance guy was like doing weird stuff, and they filmed him smelling their underwear.
Oh, sweet.
This just happened like 2 days ago.
Like right.
Why don't they do this with ghosts?
Next door?
No, not here.
Are they smelling your
No,
underwear
she's just
too?
a friend. No, she lives just a couple, like a half mile up north.
Oh, okay.
The north
Dead in
end.
my
She lives in the north
bedroom
end.
next to my underwear drawer. It was the weirdest thing.
But that, like, why doesn't anybody ever set ghosts up in those places, or cameras? I mean, I don't know.
What kind of?
What are you talking about?
what
Cameras
kind
up
of
where?
camera?
Well, if you
That's a ghost?
keep thinking there's going to be a ghost that's going to be sniffing your underwear while or trying your dresses on while you're gone, set up a camera.
Well, right. And like, if they're seeing all these ghosts on the battlefield, like, can't they just put up some sort of
A webcam. We always seem to have Bigfoot webcams.
yeah?
Did you see the one where the Wyoming? They were showing the buffalo in Yellowstone, and then all that family of
I
Bigfoot.
did see that one.
That's a good one. I
That
like
is
that one.
funny, though.
I like
Yeah.
that one. All right, we're not going to talk about that right now. And then there's the Cashtown Inn. You guys familiar with the Cashtown Inn story?
No.
There is a something. There's a ghost in a field or something near there. They always see ghosts in the building or around, but they always see like individual ghosts. They say that's supposed to be super, super, super haunted. That's another area. Again, they always see soldiers, and interesting. We keep going back to the same thing where people see soldiers. Everybody sees soldier. Now, there's
It's what makes the most sense.
Well, that's
So
what I
it's-
was gonna say. You guys were just talking about like a teenage girl and some adolescent boy. Like, these aren't soldiers.
well, but then again, there's or there's Spangler Spring. Spangler Spring, where they keep seeing this woman that's in she's in a white dress. They're always in a white dress, by the way.
Yeah.
Why are they always in a white dress? And the story is that she killed herself because a soldier, again, she doesn't have a name. They know all these stories, they just don't know her name. As she killed herself, she hung herself because she was left at the altar or something. Or some soldier canceled. So it's always a soldier or a woman in white.
You never hear of like a ghost horse smelling people's underwear.
And then there's is it Sach covered bridge? Sachs?
Mm-hmm.
That's what it is? Boy, I can't. And it's supposed to be one of the most haunted places in Gettysburg. And they always say that there's a numerous amount of photos, like photos and mists and orbs and stuff like that. And but they are always seeing
Legitimate ghost
soldiers
stuff,
there.
Mist and orbs.
Yeah.
Totally. Bugs.
Yep.
Bugs and dust. There's so much haunted bugs and dust in there. It's crazy. Haunted dust.
It's the buggiest, dustiest place ever, Gettysburg.
And then and then there's like the Till Pierce house or Tilly, something like that. But there's my favorite. There's a ghost cat there. So did the cat die during the Civil War? Is a Civil War cat? I don't know. But by the way, they're all supposed to be friendly ghosts. Just so you know, there's ghost kids there too.
Yeah, I just read one of a kid that was supposed to be hit by some horse-drawn carriage outside of a building during the Civil War, and now his ghost can be seen just contently playing marbles because the doctor said he was going to be okay before he died. Now he just thinks he's okay. Just during the Civil War. Some of the stuff makes no sense.
Okay, so you have a location where something horrible's happened. 50,000 people died, right? And you want to maintain the area, you want to have a lot of tours, and you want to make a lot of money. All you have to do is say, you go outside and you see a soldier, you see a cat, you see a horse, you see I don't know, a lady in white. I mean, it's all those things are typical ghost stories that you're just trying to throw in the one location.
Sure, if it's for revenue, but then that begs the question: how long do you have to wait after Gettysburg before you start peddling that? I mean, like, because my thought behind this whole thing is, if it's supposed to be super traumatic and it's a battlefield and so many people died and that's why there are guaranteed to be ghosts there, why aren't there ghosts in Normandy? Everything I've read about people who spend time there talk about there being no real big feeling about paranormal, no real ghosts there. And you're talking about 2,000 people that died within a matter of hours. That could be pretty relatable.
Well, and now it goes into marketing. So you have a guy like this Mark Nesmith guy who he's supposed to be the authority of Gettysburg ghosts. You can't film anything ghost-wise at Gettysburg without this guy being in it. And he's very kind of flashy in the way he's, and the funny thing is he tries to sell how legitimate he is when he goes, when somebody comes to me with a ghost story, I don't write it down the first time. And then the second time they come in, I write things down and ask them questions. Then the third time I meet them face to face, I look in their eyes and see if they're lying. But hey, I don't know. This guy's selling
his own brand.
That's it. He's keeping the lore alive,
right?
By doing this. So you're right when you're saying something like Normandy, or why in the hell aren't like
any other place in Europe where there were like thousands of people.
Concentration camps? Those were horrific deaths.
Those are probably do have haunted histories and lores. Like I lived in Centralia, Missouri for a long time, and there was another Civil War battle there. It was the Centralia Massacre, and there was a battlefield out there. And I have been out there a couple times doing investigations, and it did feel weird. I did hear what sounded like horses, right? I did hear some talking, but it was intelligible. But I don't have any proof of it because it just happened to be one of those things that just happened to be out there. But I do think any place where there's a high concentration of stress or death or that type of energy, it's just as likely to be as haunted as anyone's house, if not more so.
You talk about the city of New York. How many people have died there? Okay. And of course, people would say, well, there are haunted spots but I don't know. I sound like I'm being really negative right now, and I shouldn't be. But I think when somebody just goes, sure, it probably should be haunted. Let's just say it's haunted. And then everything is a ghost. Again, we go back to the whole thing when somebody says, if I said the building I live in now has 5 ghosts in it, and you come and stay the night here, you're probably going to say you saw one of them. If I give you a story behind one comes to you at night while you're sleeping, and he'll stand above you and
light scented candles.
Yeah, things. Yeah, you'll say one time he'll go in your kitchen and you'll hear the water start dripping. You're like, oh my God, I heard the ghost coming. And the water started dripping. But anyway, I don't know. I get kind of angry at the whole Gettysburg thing. I do understand exactly with what you're saying.
Well, and like, how woven into that is that? I haven't been, but can you go there and take a strictly Civil War tour without there being any lore about paranormal about it?
That's actually a really good question.
Are they like completely intertwined? Is Gettysburg completely about this is the battle history and this is what's going on now?
Well, there's one that's called like the Candlelight Walking Tour, and it's just based on Mark Nesmith's book. It's the haunted everything. That's the whole thing. And listen, ghost tours are fun, but you have to take them with a grain of salt because, there is
money to be made there. That's just the bottom line.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of not a lot. It's probably not a lot. I don't think anybody's getting rich doing this.
But I mean, it's definitely an addition. So Ryan and I together, we went and investigated somewhere in Illinois where the person was really apprehensive about having anybody come out there at the beginning, and they really didn't want us to be there at all. But once we got there and gave her an indication that, hey, we might think that there could be something here, she was all up in arms about having us come over, having us out again, wanting to get this verified, pretty much so she could put it out there. It's just another thing to market.
And finding any evidence, which we did find some strange evidence.
Yeah, we did. It was kind of an interesting whole situation out there. But I mean, just the switch of the owner completely from, I don't want you in these parts of the buildings, this is where I live, to, no, please go through everything, come around and take a look, and then tell anybody you can tell.
Yeah, you want to move in. And it's like your lady that you guys interviewed in Ghostumentary 1. The bar lady?
Right. If it's your best interest to say, yeah.
And when I finally said to her, hey, listen, these aren't ghosts, she was devastated. She was so devastated.
So I have a friend back home. She lives in Columbia, Missouri right now. Kayla, if you're listening to this, go to Centralia Battlefield and take some photos and some
we'll
video. Yeah, and let us know what you get. But make them good. I don't want any dust photos.
Yeah, take those really good photos of dust that'll convince us. The orb photos.
Well, so it is funny because I looked at so many photos of Gettysburg that people said there's a ghost, and it's always a reflection in the mirror, but it could be anything. We don't know see what we're seeing in the reflection, or they'll say it's a cemetery, but there's always like a head behind it, or it's the field. And they go, if you look in the tree between those leaves, that one leaf that looks like a head's a head.
Well, that's Gestalt psychology.
Yeah.
Right, and there's an old theory. It's not really a theory. It's called a phantasmagoria. Have you ever heard of that?
I have, but I can't remember what it is now.
It's where they use tricks of light in a reflective surface, whether it's smoke, whether it's fog, whether it's a piece of really clean glass, to look like there's a ghost in the distance.
Wait, didn't we talk about this before?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I know about it.
But the reason, yeah.
I listen to the podcast, by the way.
Awesome.
Occasionally, yeah.
The reason why I brought this up is I watched a video on a guy claiming to have seen a ghost at Gettysburg on this road. And it's a perfect video of this camera sitting perfectly still. And about 6 minutes into the video, you see a ghost, clear as day, walk by. It's almost translucent. And I'm thinking, you could easily make that with a phantasmagoria. And if people are willing to do that kind of stuff, just to prolong their story or the lore, I mean, you're going to make a ton of money off it.
Yeah.
Well, they're still doing that off of Loch Ness Monster. I mean, it's been proven that was a hoax from the beginning, but people won't let it go. They're still going to find ways to either cheat the system, think they're spending millions of dollars trying to find that out.
I mean, if you want the proof, just look at all the ghost shows that are on. All of them that have been on the last 10 years. It doesn't matter what new ghost show comes out. They all go to the same 25 places in the United States because they're all based off the lore. They're all based off of the money. That's what it's about.
I feel like we should do a ghost show where we only go to people's houses that no one's ever heard of.
Or just different small places. Because if this stuff exists in those places that everybody's heard of 10 times, it must exist somewhere else.
But that's what we're doing in Ghost Documentary too. We've gone and investigated homes.
That's right.
Because some...
Well, I mean, I could tell you, for example, the mattress theory.
Yeah.
But I can tell you a lot of different places.
Mattresses in Gettysburg, there's probably tons of them.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Knapsacks just rolled all over the place.
Wow. But yeah, there are a lot of places that, like, I've been to the let's pay $150 a night to go to this haunted place and have found nothing. And then I've been to the out of the backwoods cemeteries, and it's been incredible. So, I mean, I feel like while Gettysburg, I feel like you're paying for the marketing. I mean, I'm not saying that it's not haunted, but if people are going to go, what do you think is more haunted? Gettysburg or...
This place you've never heard of before.
Or the Centralia Battlefield.
Or Bob's Tire Shop.
Right. Exactly.
Bob was a madman.
Bob loved tires.
Wow.
But not people.
No, he got around.
Not people.
Yeah. Wow, that was sad.
I can tell you, though, the one thing that I can totally buy into is how easy it is to get a link to the past there. So I did spend some time in Missouri, and talking to my neighbor in the next apartment over, he was talking about how he just goes out and digs in his boss's land and finds musket balls. All sorts of projectiles. I mean, it's all right there. So it's easy to just buy into this stuff when it's easy to trip over the stuff right there. I mean, it's around you. It's impossible to live in that part of the United States and not just be surrounded by it all the time.
Mm-hmm. And everyone's got a ghost story, right? So if they can be like, this is my ghost story, and I can back it up with history, dun, 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 right? It makes more sense, and it seems more credible.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's it. 1 part relatable, 2 parts fantastical. Remember, that's what I was saying. Something that you can draw them in, and then they remember it because it's, oh my God, I saw a ghost in that second story window that you can see with me right now.
Yeah, exactly. And we've also talked about this too, the story inflation, where if I say, hey, I may have seen a ghost one time, and then by the time it gets back to you, you saw 14 ghosts out riding a horse, and they're chasing down other ghosts on horse, and I mean, it's just ridiculous.
The stampede of ghost horses. It was crazy.
Well, we had when I was in high school, we went camping, and there was something with big eyes, and we swear it had a huge wingspan.
Like the moth guy?
It could have been.
Owl
Had a
man?
huge wingspan.
It could have been, yeah. So
It
anyway,
went on for inches.
and we told this story years later. The story got told by the guy who was there, that there was like 4 of them. It's like there was only
4
one.
of the owlmen?
Yeah, there's a little 4 where this thing was. There was something in there, by the way. It probably was just a really big bird, and it just scared the crap out of us. It's probably an owl. Actually, the reality is because the way the eyes glowed, but the wingspan got us. It was so huge, and it just did that and then jumped straight up, like just went straight up, and we ran.
Did it
we
go,
weren't cramping. No, I wish it did.
Yeah.
That would explain everything. But he told the story later on that there was 4 of them.
Wow.
There was 4. We kept looking, and then there was more and more. So that's not the story. And he goes, "Oh, really? That's what I remember."
That false memory is tricky stuff.
And I bet I told,
With most paranormal encounters.
and that story I only told maybe that night, that same night, when we were like, "Guys, we saw this thing in the trees. It was huge. What was it? It was an owl." "I don't think so." That was the story that we told. And then now I guess he still tells that story. "Kids, come down here. I'm going to tell you about the 4 owl men." "Oh, Grandpa, tell us." Actually, we're not. He's not a grandpa. I don't even think he said kid yet, but someday.
I mean, like, even police work tells you right now that eyewitness testimony is completely unreliable.
Oh, it is.
Completely unreliable. Our memories are not reliable whatsoever. So,
Well, it's easy to plant false information.
right.
Like, let's say we
And
all...
we commute it to what we think is actually happening.
Well, let's talk about Bill's story, for example, right? He's like, "Oh, we saw this thing. It looked like a big owl," right? But if someone said, "Oh, it was bigger than an owl and it had claws on the end of it,"
Yeah, owls don't
they'd be
have that wingspan. Oh, yeah, well, that makes sense, right.
Right.
It was Bigfoot with wings. I'm pretty sure there was 4 Bigfoots with wings and spear fingers.
Ooh.
They were mating. I watched it.
There were rocks everywhere.
Huge
Just stacking them. They're building a retaining wall, and I walked up.
They
What's
were
going on?
building
They go, "Woo!" and then just flew off.
Make the woods great again.
That's it. Oh, make the Smoky Mountains. Make Gettysburg great again.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, listen, I've never been to Gettysburg. I'd like to go.
I would love to go.
I think
I'd love to.
And there's a thing about you just know when people have died there, you're going to get a feeling. If I walk through there and didn't know the history, and I just walked through Gettysburg,
It just looked like an old town with an old field.
Yeah, this is a
just even
area.
the field itself, where all that stuff happened, and you just walk through it, you'd probably be like, "Sure is pretty." And you'd probably just keep walking. It's kind of humid. Whatever.
Unless you found something that related to give you the other idea.
But then
right?
somebody gave you all the death and destruction that happened, and all the suffering, all the horrible things. This was the pinnacle of the Civil War and all the stuff that happened here, and it's insane. People died, and then you're like, "Oh, I can feel it." It's like the air becomes thick. You just know.
Yeah, but were you predispositioned to know that because you were told that?
I stood at the penitentiary over here, Boise State Penitentiary, and when where they would do the executions, and you stand, they let you walk where the bodies fall, and the air felt so thick to me.
Really?
It did to me. I stood there, and it's just because I felt that. We're like, how many people died a horrible death right here? Sure, they were bad people. Although, what is it, like 4% of the people who are in death row are innocent? But anyway,
I don't know.
Back then it was
Every
probably
time that
higher.
I've went there, I haven't felt anything.
but no. But the reason I felt it is because the emotional.
Oh, so you're saying something?
I didn't feel it because of ghosts. I'm not sensitive like that. What I'm saying is, I put that in my head
You had like a psychosomatic empathic response.
where I said, "Oh, a lot of people died here." Even when my stepdad died, and I had to go back into his room after, I swear that water would. The water.
Sorry.
he was,
Yeah, you assigned the
he was taking his drink and dragging on the microphone metal. Anyway, I would. I could feel like the air because I just know, like, well, my stepdad just died in this room, and then I was in that room, and the air felt like I couldn't breathe. The air felt unbreathable, and that's probably the best way to describe it. And that's the way that it felt where the executions took place at the penitentiary. And if I stood at the field in Gettysburg where that war happened, I think I would hate that same thing where the air would feel unbreathable because
Yeah,
I would just know, like, so many people died.
You know, that could be
here.
a really interesting experiment. If we found just an old field and we took a handful of people, 5 and 5, let's say, and tell 5 of them a really crazy story, and then let them go out there and tell us what they felt versus the other ones we were like, "Oh, nothing's ever happened here." You know, what do you feel? to see if there's any correlation to
We could do that
some
here.
sort of empathic response.
Well,
yeah.
does it have to have a personal correlation? I mean, like, that's what I was saying. We live here in Idaho. There's a lot of Native American history here. I've driven highways all the time that have these significant historical outlooks that say 5,000 people died here. And I go, that's a nice view. And it's terrible because I'm just that far removed from it. I mean, does it have to have a significance to yourself first for you to feel that at all?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you went out, if you had like a little rope circle or something set up, and you bring people in the middle of it and be like, right here, 20 people are buried underneath your feet. What do you feel? And they're going to definitely tell you something. Versus if you don't have that, and you're like,
I don't know. Ask the average Parisian. How do you feel right now? Because right now there's 2,000 people buried below you from the plagues on. Because seriously, that's the same question.
right.
But you don't know them. They were your grandpa's cousin. And I mean, like, so they're so far removed, you haven't even thought about it. There's no significance. They're still there.
Well, I have no correlation to anyone in Gettysburg.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. If you didn't know, or you're like, oh, this is cool, I don't know if I'd feel anything right away. I was there when I was in, where was I? Republic, Missouri. There's one right there. And I went by there. And it looked really cool. Felt ominous because I thought, wow, Civil War, a lot of people, a lot of soldiers, a lot of death. But I didn't feel anything because, like, it was there, more because I put it there.
Yeah. You know, I have another good friend of mine who lives in Carthage, Missouri, and deals with. That was a big Civil War area too, and she does a paranormal research team, and what they do is they do investigations and they charge people to come in and do it, and all that proceeds go back to the historical site to keep that house up. You've met Lisa Martin, that PSL.
Yeah, that's actually a great idea. I could see doing that.
I'll reach out to her and have her post some pictures too. But the cool thing about that place is you can walk in there and they have this giant wooden table that they used to do operations on, and you can hit it with a black light, and in the grooves you can see the reflection of all the blood. And I mean, it's a pretty cool place, just historically.
Yeah,
right.
That is pretty awesome.
Is that the sad part? Is that the sad truth that we have to look at? Is that the paranormal is the spin that we have to put on things to make history interesting to the majority of people? Is that the sad part? Because, like, how many people care about going to Gettysburg if it weren't for, like, and the ghosts that are here?
Well, I wonder if the paranormal makes things relatable, because everyone tends to have a ghost story, right?
Sure.
Not everyone's like, oh, I've, witnessed someone die, or I've had a significant historical value in my life.
So that's the part that ties it to you. You might not be able to feel any significance or identify with anybody from the Civil War era or what happened then, but you have a ghost story, and that's a ghost story, and you can relate there.
Right. That makes sense to me, right?
Right. No, that does make sense.
Right. And we talked about earlier when Bill had that psychosomatic empathic response, basically where he thought he felt something, so he did. A lot of people have that, right? If you go into a place and someone tells you that it's haunted, and you're like, oh man, I felt a cold spot right here. If there's 10 people in there that feel a cold spot there too, you may not know them, but together you've shared something, whether it's mass hallucination or just psychic driving. You're going to talk about it. And then those things tend to lead to, oh, well, this happened to me here, and this happened to me here. So now you've got this collective of stories, right? And if you have a place that's that haunted, whether it's Gettysburg and the surrounding areas of the battlefield, right? Like the barn that Bill was talking about. Those are things that people can relate to, and I think that's why they are so attracted to it.
Right.
What do you think, Bill?
Well, I think it's all frame of mind. Is a thing, like I said over and over, I talk about this all the time. If I try and tell you that there's a certain thing in that certain area that is caused by a ghost, when you hear it, you're going to immediately just think it's a ghost.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like it's really funny is even like Lloyd Auerbach said, Alcatraz it's not haunted. Not in the way you would think of a conventional ghost. And I've heard others say, well, it's just unhaunted.
Well, but that completely goes against the whole thing about Al Capone being haunted at Alcatraz, right?
But then it doesn't fit what people want. They go, well, it has to be haunted. It's an old prison. That's their attitude. Well, of course it's haunted. It's an old prison and people died there. It has to be.
Well, that's like saying you got an old house, from the 1900s that people are going to be like, oh, this house is haunted. It's going to make more sense than a house that was built 10 years ago.
That's what I was saying earlier. That's exactly the same statement as saying there was a battle here. It must be freaking haunted.
Why does nobody ever think that like a senior living facility is haunted?
I bet that.
People die there all day long. All day long. Go down to Sunny Meadows. And I don't know. That's usually probably a name.
90% of the time they die.
They die and you just come to work. It's when I was going to school, I dated a girl who she was becoming a nurse and she worked at one called Sierra Meadows. It was a senior. She would show up to work one day and she's like, "Oh, so and so died." It became that thing. Just so and so died. So I couldn't do that job.
I guess the rattling of Jello spoons are not going to be as scary as Gettysburg.
Somebody turned on Matlock. Ooh.
The volume keeps getting louder and louder and louder on the TVs.
Yeah, but nobody thinks of those because those buildings generally look nice and they're not scary. They smell gross inside. They smell like death and mothballs.
I don't know. I got to tell you, I've always gotten a weird vibe that I've never asked to feel from those places. More than I've gotten at more paranormal places than I've been to.
Well, it's because there's like people are just dying. Like that's where you go to.
Is it the act of dying that's going on around me rather than death proceeding?
It's the cat that we've talked about since death.
Yeah.
Who just crawl in your lap, and just know like you're just lying there in bed. That cat crawls in your room. You're like, fuck. Well, here we go. I'm gonna die. Which still we need to make a haunted movie about that. That cat just goes and lays on people, and then they just die.
Yeah.
But it's so cute. It's like really adorable cat.
Like the cat from Shrek.
Yeah. It's that. But it's like, but I gotta pet it. Because I know people that just have to stop and pet a cat.
Okay, so here's the scene that I see. It's a dark hallway, right? There's like a flickering exit sign, and you just see this cat shadow and like this old person running down the hall. Like on one of the scooters, you hear whoosh, whoosh, which is, I gotta guess that's what noise the walker makes.
I saw it though. In my head, I saw what you were just talking about.
I'm thinking like terrible raunchy comedy where the black cat is just being rented out for euthanasia purposes. And you just got to come and get it petted.
You can rent
pass on, and then suddenly the cat is out in the world because it gets out of some old geezer's window.
What if
now people are just petting this cat at random?
There's a hit list.
It's the dead cat pool.
Yeah.
But the thing of it is like what you need to do is you own the cat and like you can lease it out to people. So it's like a black market thing where they say, "Hey, listen, my aunt Stephanie's been staying with me, and I kind of want her to fall asleep. So can I borrow your cat? Like, look, Aunt Stephanie, I got you a cat. Oh, thank you. And then you die
9 lives.
Yeah, 9 lives at once.
Wow.
Yep.
I like it. I'm in.
Let's
I'm
do
in.
it.
And every time that cat steals a life, it gets another life.
There you
Ooh.
go.
So it's even longer.
So it's like an immortal cat.
Oh, that'd be a bitch.
Or what if it's the owner?
Between killing people, you'd have to kill it like 8 goddamn times.
It's funny because it'd be sitting on the table and just push a glass off the table.
Yeah.
Right? That's like the suspenseful moment.
This movie's developing.
I like it. Oh, great. Now they're going to steal it because we just talked about it on the
Copyright.
show.
Yeah, it doesn't work that way.
Last time we did this, we talked about the story where the idea for a movie where the city does a kidnapping, so thousands of FBI agents come there and populate the town with money again.
And we've talked about the thumb of Voltron.
The thumb of Voltron.
If any of these ideas get stolen, we're going to kill Ryan. He's going to haunt you.
That's right. We have a cat. We're going to bring our cat over to your house.
That would be funny, too. Just have a person dressed as a giant cat. Smothering people by laying on them.
Just start sending people's cats in the mail,
Oh, that's kind of gross.
All right.
I like it.
Well,
That's suddenly a Godfather thing.
Since Tanya's not here, I'm going to start pulling the mean producer and tell her that we're running out of time.
Oh, okay.
Wow, that was fast.
It was. Time goes by fast when you're talking about Gettysburg.
50,000 dead people.
In a world. But going back to this whole Gettysburg thing, I think I sounded really negative during this. I've never been there. I just did so much research.
That it's over?
No. I just on the fact that it could be haunted. I got a little. Everything I read was then there's the story of the guy. Then there's the story of the woman. Then the story of the baby who was in the house. But everybody has every ounce of information on these people,
except for names and places.
And they don't have names. But the only person I ever there was John Burns, who was the oldest. By the way, John Burns, who was the oldest Civil War soldier. But it's funny, they talked about how old he was, and they used to ridicule him for being so old. But then they said many years later, when he was 75. So what was he, like 40? And he was like this, senior citizen back during the war. Like, but anyhow, that was the only person they said that and this is the story they told. He was a really tough man and he fought in the war. Years later, when he was 75, he was walking on his property and something scared him so much he never went back to that part of the property. So then they did this assumption. They go, well, it must have been a ghost.
Yeah.
It couldn't have been a bear. It could have been Spearfinger. We don't know.
True.
I don't know.
Well, it's easier to make something more believable to the masses if you keep it generalized.
I want somebody to come to me with a story with names.
Yeah.
I want to find me a name, and not something a psychic. I don't want a psychic to walk up and say, I'm getting the name Jedediah, and Jedediah was shot by a musket. Oh, there was a Jedediah shot with a musket. Oh, my God, tell me more.
Yeah, cold reading is fun.
Yeah.
But now with everything being on Google, you could literally just research it and go out there and be like, oh, such and so Tom Bigfoot is touching me, right?
Yeah.
That was a horrible name. Tom Bigfoot. I'm tired. I've had 3 glasses of wine.
Can you imagine Tom as a Bigfoot, like a hairless Bigfoot?
All the Asian Bigfoots are hairless.
It's coming in. Just give it a little bit. Like, oh, it's so gross.
Big
I can
feet.
see your balls.
You.
Someone mail him a cat.
All right. Well, anyway, Gettysburg. If you guys have a Gettysburg story, share it with us.
Yeah, if you've been there and you've been on a tour that is not linked to paranormal, let us know, because I'm curious.
Or even if you were, I just want to get everybody's thoughts on paranormal.
Yeah, and if you've ever been to any other battlefield that is
Civil War related.
Yeah, send us a picture if you have
Yeah,
any.
ghost experiences. Post them up.
Love is a battlefield.
Yeah, love is a battlefield.
It is. It is. All right. So with that, I think we're gonna call it. Thanks for listening. Hey, remember, be sure to listen and subscribe to us. Leave us some reviews on iTunes, or just give us some love. Let us know you're thinking about us. Send us some ghost photos.
We have a Facebook page too.
Go to our Facebook page. Go to our Instagram is at it's Ghostumentary, and then of course Eat Drink and Be Scary on Facebook on FriendFace, and give us a message and say hi and tell your friends to listen. And if you have an idea that you want us to talk about, whether it's really big or really small, reach out.
Yeah, but be careful, because our Facebook page may give you a weird vibe. People have died there before.
And with that, good night.
Good night.
Good night.